You work hard for your warehouse, but is your technology working as hard as you do? Don't you think your warehouse deserves that? Find that technology work ethic with the EPG One Unified Supply Chain Execution Suite that's built to arm warehouse leaders with tech that powers competitive edge. With modular solutions for WMS, WCS, TMS, workforce, doc, 3PL billing, control tower, and the number one voice picking solution named Lydia Voice, the EPG One suite gives you tech that works harder for your warehouse and the agility to help you scale with confidence and be built for what's next. Smarter, connected, and harder working logistics starts at epg.com. That's epg.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Tim Fehr, and he is the Chief Operations Officer over at Happy Returns. And they're all focused on returns, if you couldn't guess that from the name. But he's going to tell us a little bit more about what they do. But we're going to dive into their operations and how they've taken their traditional operation and they've added in automation, AI, and some other technology to be able to increase the satisfaction on the consumer experience, but also improve their operations overall. So really interested to dive into this and hear about kind of how this all came together and what they've implemented and the results of that. So, Tim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin. Excited to be here today.
Definitely happy to get you on. I think this is the first time we've had Happy Returns on, but definitely excited to dive into the operations of what you do and how you kind of make it all happen, as well as operations tends to do for a lot of businesses. I'm sure you could agree with that, probably. But for people that aren't familiar, maybe give us kind of a brief overview of Happy Returns and what it is y'all do for everybody.
So Happy Returns facilitates in-person returns of online purchases. This is similar to what Amazon does with Kohl's and Whole Foods. We have 8,000 drop-off points across the country where we can bring a return, no box, no label, get an instant refund. We validate the items at drop-off, which is an indestructible fraud prevention tool that allows us to credit people. And then those returns go to our 3 warehouses where we sort them by merchant and ship them outbound back to the retailers.
All right, great, and definitely making returns a little easier for the consumer, right? Is the goal?
Yeah. So in terms of kind of value prop, we have a lifetime NPS of 93. Customers overwhelmingly prefer to return in person. Actually, no boxing, no labeling, and the instant refund is a big one. And for merchants, we create value by reducing fraud. There's many ways to defraud, particularly if you're doing, let's say, a refund on carrier scan. There's a lot of fraud involved. We allow merchants to give that customer experience of an instant refund while not exposing themselves to fraud. So that's a cool unlock for them. We also reduce the phone calls for where's my credit, because it's instantly credited. And compared to like a floor-loaded trailer of 1,000 small parcel returns, our palletized wrapped Gaylords are much easier to unload.
Interesting. Yeah. So let's dive into that a little bit from an operations perspective. And you mentioned that you've been out for, I think, 10 years, right? About and gone through some iterations there, right? We're acquired by PayPal, and then now part of UPS, right, under the UPS umbrella. So obviously, in that time, I mean, there's certainly been a lot of change in e-commerce and just consumer behavior in general. But I'm sure there's been some changes in your operations as well. So tell us a little bit about kind of, I guess maybe tell us first, like what were your operations like? Because, we're going to talk a little bit about what they are now after you brought in some newer technology and things like that. But, the return gets dropped off at the store, and then you just mentioned, gets put into a Gaylord and then has to go somewhere, I guess, for processing, right? So tell us a little bit about, how does that work, and how did that come into whatever facility was processing?
Yeah. So let's say you were to do a Happy Returns return from one of our merchant partners at your local UPS store in New Jersey. Many other people would go that day to that same store with many merchants, because we have hundreds.
Okay.
We consolidate all those we bag them at the store and then consolidate them to a single shipping container. So there might be an Everlane return, a Revolve return, a Lands' End return, a Gap return, all in the same box. I can't ship that back to any of those retailers because it's got a bunch of other stuff in it.
Sure.
So we have 3, think of them as kind of cross-docking facilities across the country where we point the return bars to. And the essential function of the warehouses is to sort the items. Now, to do that, you need to unload the trailers, open the boxes, identify the item, get it sorted in the right place, and then you need to kind of containerize those and then aggregate those containers and ship them outbound. So that's the kind of core sort of operating stack. And we've grown pretty rapidly over the course of the year. So I started in 2018. We're now like 400 times bigger than when I started.
That's
and
a lot.
So, yeah, no, it's like kind of the dream, you want to, there's not a lot of like hyper growth operations out there.
Sure. Yeah.
When I started, it was 3,000 square foot office warehouse combined. So the warehouse part was roughly 1,500 square feet, which is like an office size. And it was 9 blocks from the beach in Santa Monica, California. So
that's nice.
Part of American industry. And so now, now we got 3 facilities, hundreds of thousands of square feet. We have, there was an announcement that Amazon had more robots than people recently. We were like, we did that 18 months ago. We didn't know that was like a thing we should tell people about or whatever. So we come a long way. And I think, the biggest aspect of that has just been trying to be ruthless about simplification. I think operations want to be complex, and it takes a lot of technology and operational acumen to force them to be simple. And if you can sort of constantly be reducing your complexity, you can get better outcomes with fewer people. And that's really been our story. I think back in the early days, we were, just like any startup, the goal was to like not die today.
Yeah.
And then that worked, for a while. PayPal acquired us, and we got some breathing space to do some like kind of investments in architecture. Spent a lot of time just really making deep investments in the kind of hub operating technology. So one very cool part about Happy Returns is we're a technology company and an operations company. And so we've got, dozens of developers. And we build all of our own software in-house. So the entire kind of warehouse operating stack is completely ours. And because we control the return data from customer origin to delivery to the 3PL, there's just a lot of power we can get in kind of visibility and control within our warehouses. And so we did enormous investments in kind of just how that software is working and how good our processes were and exceptions handling all within the software. And we have actual kind of designers and product managers. So we built our warehouse software like we would build software that faces genuine consumers. It's just supposed to be very easy to use.
Yeah.
So it's like a very friendly UI. And we view our operators as customers. So the UX people do like quarterly roundtables to get feedback on that. So we're very focused on creating good experiences for our actual hourly operators, because we feel like if we do that, then we'll just kind of be doing pretty well over time. So we kind of entered a UPS at a pretty solid state. Our operations were good. We had done some initial automation. We had just some motor-driven roller conveyance to move boxes around, but it wasn't integrated in any meaningful sense. And we had a belt conveyor to a cardboard compactor, kind of stuff like that. And then we got acquired by UPS. We were looking at some very steep growth curves, just a result of that acquisition and what it could do for our kind of go to market. We ran the numbers and it was like hundreds of people we'd have to hire, and we're not that big. So hiring hundreds of hourly associates, particularly in 2023, when the economy was hot, it was like, oh, wow, that's not going to be great. It was a real push to be like, well, we had thought about automation for a while. We did a big look in 2022 at more of like a trad automation. So it was large, talking to like a mainstream integrator, very large Bombay sorter. The throughput's really high because it's basically what UPS would use, but it costs tens of millions of dollars and doesn't have that many lanes. And once you build it, you own it for like, you can't really change it for like decades. And so as a startup, it was like, that's just like it's a lot of money. And even beyond the money, just we can't really commit to that kind of thing for forever, because we don't kind of know where we're going to go with our operations. We try to like reinvent ourselves every 6 to 12 months. Then we came into UPS. They of course have deep expertise in automation, and beyond the expertise, they're one of the largest purchasers of industrial automation in the world. And so in terms of like pricing and alignment for merchants and lead times, it's all exceptional. So we pretty quickly threw together a plan. I think we made it in January of 2024. We went live in August of 2024 on the first warehouse. And that was largely around Geek Plus AMRs. So the main task, the most time-consuming and laborious task is sorting the merchants. So imagine, you're an operator, you unload a truck, you open a box, there's 12 to 13 returns in there. It's kind of what we average. And you've got to get into one of hundreds of outbound lanes. So if you're doing that manually, well, you can't really you work in warehouse, you can't have like 150 lanes. You got to walk around and find them. So we had multiple kind of waterfalls to try to make that manageable. Which, it worked. We were succeeding, but multiple waterfalls they're bad for a few reasons, right? So we really just try to touch stuff a single time or 0 times if we can. That's the goal. So you have like programmatic multiple touches, which is kind of toxic if you're like believe in ops religion. And you introduce the opportunity for errors because there's just all these touches. And whenever you have someone sorting 10 ways very quickly, even if you're scanning, it's dangerous. And from a throughput perspective, if you imagine, 3 waterfalls and there's like a pool behind each one, you have to have a decent amount of volume in the system or else parts are going to run dry. And we're hyper-focused on productivity. So we don't really accept any operational downtime. We're not an outbound. There's not like orders flowing in throughout the day, so we don't really need that. So it's always like, hey, everyone should be working. And so we needed to have like a day or day and a half of work in progress at any given time, which basically means you can't, there's no getting clean, right? Because you have to be holding work. And so the robotics really revolutionized things in a couple of ways. So it's all first touch now. So you basically just unload a box. They all come in bagged with a barcode, and we know what that barcode is. So we just scan the barcode, put in the robot, and then the robot drives and dumps it directly into a Gaylord. There's a conveyor belt on the top of the robot. It's pretty cute. So then you're just kind of done. So it reduces multiple secondary touches. And even the first touch is much faster because before there were 7 or 8 kind of containers in the first touch area. Now there's just one. So even the touch we have is more productive, and there's 1 instead of 3, which is really wonderful. From a quality perspective, it's very, very hard to make an error in this world because you scan it, put it in the robot. And from a throughput perspective, you don't have to have all these multiple waterfalls. So we get clean every day in the warehouse, and then we're able to ship out all the items we get the same day we get them. So kind of that across stock, that's as fast as you can be is 0 days. And so there's a lot of other work that went into that in terms of how we manage carriers and outbound, and how we got UPS to deliver earlier by doing some feeder bypass work. But the AMRs were kind of the secret, and it's been wonderful. They are great. And compared to a traditional Bombay or Euro sorter, it's orders of magnitude less expensive.
Mm.
And if you need more volume, you just buy more robots. So, every couple of months as our volume increases, we buy more Geek Plus robotics. It's quite modular. If we need to move a warehouse, if we expand, we can just crate them up and ship them up. Takes a couple of weeks.
Move 'em over, yeah.
They're really great. And we believe we're on a multi-year automation journey. So much more to come in 26 and hopefully 27. So.
Interesting. Very, very interesting to hear about that. And I'm curious, I want to take a step back there. I mean, when you look at returns, I mean, obviously you have brands, right? So there's, some consistency in, I guess, the type of products that are being returned, but there's some variability there, right? And what can be returned, because it's, it's kind of up to the consumer. Like, I'm going to return this, or I'm not going to return this. You don't necessarily know what's coming in that regard. So how did you kind of factor in that variability into like the automation decision on the vehicle itself to know that, like, okay, well, we're going to go with this Geek Plus AMR, and that's going to be able to accommodate pretty much all the products that we expect to come through the facility?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you asking the question, where's my stuff, too often? Whether it's in your own warehouses, from your suppliers, or in your customer network, if you're not sure where your stuff is, then Surge Air has the solution for you. With Surge Air's 99.9% accuracy, you're getting more than just supply chain visibility. You're getting the ability to orchestrate your supply chain and guide decisions in real time. Reduce the chaos in your supply chain and find operational truth with Surge Air. Find your visibility and learn more at surgeair.com. That's surgeair.com.
Yeah, so one operational advantage we have is that because we consolidate at the return bars,
Sure.
we can't accept anything bigger than the box that we consolidated.
Okay.
And we think about how kind of consolidation works. Well, if I'm going to take one item and ship it to myself, I should just ship that to you. There's no advantage to it. So we have like a ceiling on size and weight. And then we just kind of knew what those things were and then spec them out with Geek Plus. We were very focused on that, though, because I was telling my automation team, I'm like, if you buy robots and the items don't fit on them, like we all need to quit before we are fired. That's like just that would be the worst. I'd just be embarrassed if that happened. And so no one, we did not. We were very mindful of that, and we were pretty focused on. We really do not want an overflow flow. I just think exceptions are toxic to a good operation, and you should try very, very hard to not create them. And so we were very focused on finding robotics that wouldn't require any kind of oversized exceptional flow. We have that.
Interesting. And when you decided to do this, did this go into place in an existing like brownfield facility you had, or was this?
It did. Yes, we have 3 warehouses. We had some excess space in all 3. Because we need to, we're growing a lot. And so you have a 5-year lease.
Sure.
Try to come figure that out. But we got a great team. I'm very proud of them. So we were able to install in all 3 brownfields. We missed 0 days.
Nice.
There wasn't really, we operated continuously through, and we cut over a weekend, and it was fine. Of course there was, some work to do. There was some uncomfort and some stuff that had to happen. But we didn't have to shut anything down.
Yeah. Interesting. And now from a inspection standpoint, right? So are you doing the inspections? Is that happening at the returns bars, or that's happening back?
Yeah. So we, the return bars are validating if the item is correct.
Okay.
And then we view ourselves as really like a shipper. So the idea is we can validate the items are correct to allow for an instant credit, box-free, label-free experience. And then we can get those returns back to you roughly the speed at a deferred shipping product. So ground saver, ground economy, that kind of stuff. And so it's we feel like it's just a much better way to do returns because you get that same customer experience and your kind of operational outcomes are the same. And so all of just like you would with a parcel shipper, the inspecting for damage and refurbishment would happen usually at the 3PL or a merchant-owned warehouse that we ship back to.
Gotcha. So you're not doing any inspection in terms of like if somebody, like if I return this shirt, right? Like you're not checking to see like, oh, does it have deodorant marks or has it been worn? Or
Yeah, no, that would happen back at the warehouse, just like if you were to return UPS ground. We
Gotcha.
we used to do a bit of it back in the day.
Yeah,
It is very hard to scale to like even dozens of merchants
sure.
because people really do have different ideas of what they think a damage is.
Mm.
And some merchants bias inventory recovery much higher than consumer experience of getting a bad outbound shipment, whereas other people are much more on the other end. Frequently, merchants will change their perspective based on kind of their internal operating needs.
Mm.
It was just very challenging to scale the business like that. So we've been just doing traditional kind of shipping only products for a while now.
Gotcha.
Most 3PLs offer this service, and they're pretty good at it. So we also didn't feel like we were adding a lot in the market by doing that.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So we talked a little bit about kind of the automation and the robotics that you've brought into play in your operations here. How are you looking at technologies like AI, there's computer vision, or anything like that? Does that have your attention at all?
It is almost the only thing I do. So yeah, it certainly has our attention. Very excited to talk about it.
Okay.
No, honestly, it's just a really exciting time, I think, just in the world right now,
Yeah.
and particularly in operations. And I think the cool part is operations tends not to be a fast adopter of new stuff.
Mm.
And so if you're, compared to say SaaS businesses or I don't know, advanced research institutions.
Sure.
So if you are actually pretty innovation forward, you can get some first mover advantages, and we're very focused on that. So a couple of things we're working on. So RFID is not quite as new, but it's still pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going live with RFID here in August. Initially, we have a tender process to ensure that we give the right outbound shipments to the right carriers. Right now, there's a barcode scanning process which works nearly always well, but we're installing SLS. They're like forks, like palm chopsticks, and so basically it's going to be like there'll be a SLS, and then there's going to be a screen that goes red to green to get you on there. So it's going to be very hard to make an error, and we'll remove that kind of clunkiness of the scan. The next step on RFID, we're hoping to work with SLS to do like a static like net system. So we have designated pallet spaces for everything that we store. And of course, we're always trying to make sure that things are in the place they're supposed to be, as like any good operator would do.
Sure.
And we're hopeful that we can actually basically just hit a button and be like, is everything in the right place? Because we have RFID labels on our Gaylords now. So we're excited about that. Yeah. And then in terms of like AI, we're building a digital twin right now, which is essentially a simulation environment of our warehouse. We're starting with a few different factors and basically run thousands of simulations and find the best place to lay your warehouse out. And we hope to move that towards, right now it's working kind of linearly. So it's like do this and then that, essentially. It's like machine learning, traditional coding. We're hoping once the context windows get large enough on the foundational LLM, so ChatGPT or Anthropic, that we can actually have like just throw in millions of data points and be like, figure this all out. We think that might be like next year, although ChatGPT 5 is coming out, we hope in August, and we're kind of excited about what that can do. On the computer vision side, we got like a whole team spun up on this one. It's pretty cool. And one nice thing with the new dev tools is we actually have operators like building this software now.
Yeah.
It's like the head of our Valencia warehouse also has a master's degree in computer science. So he's training a machine learning model now. So things to do with computer vision. And we have we're kind of getting started here. There's a lot of limitations now, mostly because the foundational LLMs can't watch like hours of video yet. But in general, so we have a pretty strong approach to AI across the business. Our general kind of disposition is every couple of weeks, there's a radical advancement, So over the course of quarters, it's kind of hard to predict. So we want everything kind of set up, architected, figured out in advance of when the foundational models will launch. So that way we can just kind of turn it on. But then you save 3 to 6 months. And that's like kind of a long time for us and how we're thinking about things now. So in terms of the computer vision, we are kind of bootstrapping a safety camera system. So right now we can tell if you're wearing a safety vest.
Sure.
if you're doing an unassisted overhead reach, or if you are in the robotic, like there's an area where you shouldn't go because the robots may hit you.
Yeah.
And then there's a dashboard. And so it actually shows you a still image. And then the safety manager's got to go in there and review those. And so that's a big benefit to safety. We hope over time. So that one we're doing in just machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tool called a RoboFlow where you can kind of train things. And so we hope over time to add more things, then hopefully go like actually full Gen AI on the analysis of that.
Mm.
From an operational quality perspective, we've got a computer vision system that can track when items have fallen on the floor.
Interesting.
In the dance floor.
Yeah.
And, you can see these now, but it's kind of a big dance floor. We don't pay people to just like watch the robots. So it's kind of peaceful. And so if there's stuff on the floor, and look, we do hundreds of thousands of sorts a day or whatever. So, if you have a very small error, it's still one thing falling every 30 or 45 minutes. And we don't lose those things or damage them. They just like clunk up the robotic flow. So the cameras notice it, and then it's integrated to Slack. So it just sends a Slack notification to the operators and says, hey, go find this bag in this area. We think there's a lot more that we can do. We're working now on if a Gaylord. So there's basically how it works is there's we call them fingers because they're kind of extensions of the dance floor, and the robot goes and it dumps into a Gaylord. Sure. We have people now just kind of watching those Gaylords to see if they're full. We think we can get a system where a camera knows it's full and then kind of alerts you. And so we can have less downtime. We're also working on some quality management stuff. So the holy grail for us would be cameras that can identify barcodes from kind of far away.
Okay.
Because then the basic quality problem in a warehouse is I scanned box A but put it into box B. And this is not a solvable. You can manage this problem and you manage it through obnoxiously exhaustive scanning. And then these data sets, and we have a whole platform team trying to keep up with these scans. But it's unsatisfying because the possibility still exists.
Sure.
And so the idea will be if the cameras can see the barcode, well, then you never actually know what happened in a warehouse. You just know what the data tells you. And so the cameras offer the possibility of having I think I'm calling it management through direct observation. Like I just know what happened. There's no inference. Yeah. I don't think the world can be there yet for a few reasons. But we think that's kind of the future we think that, and honestly, just exhaustive cameras where a reasoning engine is kind of telling you what to do is probably where warehouses will be in 3 or 4 years. And so we're excited to kind of be, to the extent we can, at the kind of forefront of that innovation.
Yeah, very, very interesting, and a lot of projects there you're working on for sure. And
it's cool. Yeah. I mean, on some level, we value innovation as its own thing. Yeah. And so it's really exciting, and the team's into it, and it's it's fun for me too. So great.
That's cool. And I'm curious there, on some of the computer vision stuff you're talking about, there's certainly companies that are working on similar things and selling that. So I'm curious, you're thinking in building versus buying. Why do you lean more towards?
Yeah, we're having some initial discussions with other companies.
Okay, sure.
Of course, we're open to it. It's still in a pretty early phase now. And so we're not really sure if there's any one company that can go in and do this. Yeah. And frankly, we kind of want to it's cool for us to work on, and we think it can provide other value points, right? So we're excited to do it ourselves. If there was someone who could just go do it for us, we could. We were looking at various safety camera installations, but especially when you're a big company, I think that Gen AI really changes the build buy. If you ever worked a Fortune 50 company, the buy part is a lot of problems besides just the money. The InfoSec review and the legal review and the procurement take a very long time, and we try to be appropriately irreverent. And so it's if we spend the hours we would have spent investing in alignment with InfoSec, legal, and procurement on just building it, how far would we get? Yeah. Because you can develop now, because if I'm using Cursor, right? So there's the Gen AI development tools are genuinely transformative. And so that was kind of a bet we made with ourselves, though. We think actually might be able to do this. And we have now cameras live with real results dramatically faster than we could have signed a contract with some of these outside providers. We may still eventually sign up with one. But I think we're learning a lot about kind of how this technology works and what value it can provide for our customers.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I think that's like a very interesting perspective on it, because I think too, like you mentioned, I mean, certainly there's a lot of red tape, like you were talking about there, to try and just get a solution, I guess, approved.
And I think, what I see too is, I feel very grateful to work at a company that's an actual like development team. Because a lot of companies just don't at all.
Yeah.
Or it's they're so big that like, okay, well, there is engineers, but they're like operations has no access to them.
Yeah.
And like maybe if your EVP says the right things in some monthly meeting, you can be in a roadmap for 5 quarters from now or whatever. And so I used to work at places like that.
Yeah.
And so like, honestly, we're just like thinking about ideas and we're doing them. And we're getting so much more productive that we're trying to push that decision making down to like a director level, just kind of getting stuff done. And so that's been a real area of unlock for Gen AI. It's reducing the costs of development. And in most organizations, development, like computer science development, is your most constrained and important resource. And so there's a vast apparatus of control to make sure that you spend it appropriately and kind of measure 85 times and cut once. Well, as you reduce the cost of development, that system should change. Otherwise, you're just going to have underutilized developers waiting for the control apparatus to tell it what to do. And so we've tried to be thoughtful about how we can, we're talking about AI transformation. I don't hear a lot of people talking about org redesign.
Sure.
But I don't. All organizations or systems are designed around their constraints. And if you actually transform with Gen AI, it's radically changes your constraints. And your constraints become like legal, like, it's actually the cost, the time it takes, not necessarily man hours, but the throughput time it takes to get a contract through is approaching the time it takes to build new features.
Yeah.
So you have to be smart about how you change. And it takes a lot of like rethinking, because we're all designed to work in these kind of like 2010s style process flows. And that's not the way you get the best outcomes with these new tools.
Very interesting. And I got to ask you, because, it seems like you're thinking about operations, I think, in a very different way than most people are thinking. Like you said, they're operating in kind of a 2010s style, right? And you're seeing it, I think, in a much different way, and what that future looks like. I mean, you mentioned that your person that leads the California warehouse has a master's in computer science, right? Which is very different than what you would see for someone who would typically lead a warehouse, right? So tell us, what do you see as kind of the future of the warehouse? Like, what does the warehouse or operation look like to you in like 5 years, 10 years? Yeah.
I think, look, a lot of things will largely be the same.
Sure.
Of course. Right. So I will want to overstate it, but I think now, and for our working lives, the ability to manage large amounts of labor has been the main competitive advantage in operations, right? I mean, what are the thing about these huge companies, right? What are the advantages? Well, they can organize large amounts of labor in a stable fashion. They have scale for kind of whatever delivery or work you're doing. They have kind of procurement advantages, and they have already built a lot of software that is useful. And those were real moats, but I think they're becoming less real, right? And I'll just kind of walk through them, right? So between advancing software tools and kind of like autonomy, the advantage of having large groups of employees actually becomes reliability. And you kind of see this in earnings statements that needs to be kind of around, right? I think scale is very important still for delivery density and procurement and all that stuff.
Sure.
But when you look at having built a lot of software, as software gets easier to build, having built a lot of it is less advantageous because someone else can build more of it. And it may actually be a liability because you probably have a fantastic amount of tech debt that you don't know how to fix, right? And you probably have a lot of people around who feel very precious about what they built, and they may be dismissive of someone who wants to just like trash it all and start
blow
again,
it up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's where like the advantage of incumbency are changing. And so what you really have to do is like, I mean, that sounds like when I say disrupt yourself or whatever, but like you have to be like genuinely willing to operate in a new way. And we're trying to do that here. And there's a lot of, benefits that we're seeing from it. And, our push into AI is not just in operations, it's across the entire kind of operating stack of the business. But it's very exciting time.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And I think you have a great point there about, people, I mean, I think operations, we're like a little averse to change sometimes, right? So like how do you open up to that change and look at things in a different way, like you said there. So very interesting to talk to you and hear kind of what you've gone through in the operation, how you've brought in this technology and what you're looking at now too, and for the future as well. And I think it's a very, very different perspective than I think a lot of operations people are thinking right now. So hopefully it's inspiring to some people out there. Yeah.
If there's any change, like I'm often disappointed by like the lack of genuinely technology forward thinking in the industry. I think it's because most people have like never had access to a real dev team.
Yeah.
And so like in my old job, I was basically taught your job is to architect around that technology.
Yeah.
And if you ask for improvements to the warehouse UI, we're going to probably fire you because that's insane that you would think that's what we would work on.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so people have been trained to like not ask for help. And so as the cost of developing technology decreases, I just really hope it proliferates because, you look around, there's just like so many opportunities to improve American logistics, and like the ability to move stuff around cheaply is critically important to be competitive for us internationally. And so I just hope the industry is adopting and, we're helping to improve the country and the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've certainly run into those roadblocks myself in my career too, as well. And it can be quite frustrating when you want to think about things in a different way. So really appreciate you coming on the show today, Tim, and talking to us. If people want to learn more about Happy Returns, what's the best way to do that?
I'll go to website, a lot of stuff on there. And, I'm active on LinkedIn. So just find me there, shoot me a message, be happy to talk.
Awesome. We'll definitely put all that info at thenewwarehouse.com and in the show notes too, so people can find it easily. So Tim, thank you once again.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, and for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes, and for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.